That's it. This is the last of the NSO games and all that Nintendo has announced for. Pokemon Snap at this point in time is the final iteration of the Nintendo 64 NSO collection, and it's pretty solid actually. I know I've compared to other NSO games you've seen on the channel, and they always vary because of gameplay elements, the way 2D and 3D is handled, but it does benefit from being emulated from the original N64 experience. I won't be comparing this to the Wii experience, but if you want to see how that works, I have a video right up here that gives you port for support of the N64 and the Wii version I did about like 2 years ago. A quick TLDR of Pokemon Snap. You are a photographer named Todd going out into different specific lands and levels in order to snapshot Pokemon. It is designed like a rail shooter, but obviously instead of shooting Pokemon, you are shooting Pokemon with your camera. And you're supposed to get the best shots that you can, and that's why people love Pokemon Snap so much. This is up-res from the original N64 experience, so if you don't like sharper pixels, the smoothing will look absolutely nice, especially in a game like this. Pokemon Snap primarily uses 3D graphics in terms of its level design, the way some of the layout is, some of the Pokemon models as well, and they really do benefit from both the smoothing filter and being up-resed as well. So unlike other NSO titles, this is really one of the ones that looks very, very nice because of that up-res. There is a negative to that, and that is the 2D sprites. Sprites such as Professor Oak don't really look that nice against the 2D background just because the filter kind of really smooths out his 2D textures. And the same thing with the HUD as well, when you see how many camera shots that you have, as well as apples and stuff like that. I mean, to be fair, it's not really a big deal because whatever 2D textures are in this game are somewhat minimal and they're not really used as prominently as 3D. So this is really one of those games that just benefits from being up-res like crazy. And being on a smaller screen, it does look nice on handheld, so if you wanted to see how that experience was, you would have no problem with that. A huge positive in comparison to the N64 version is that this is capped at 30 FPS. Similar to other NSO games, this is also capped at 30 FPS and probably one of the smoothest versions of Pokemon Snap that I've currently seen. It actually looks amazing compared to the N64 just because during like this title screen, for example, with Todd running around, you can really see that the way some of the cameras are kind of shot and panned, it just completely stutters and it just bogs down, especially when Mew's up in the air and you start to see that chugginess. So the benefits of having 30 FPS is pretty incredible, and it's something that I absolutely love that Nintendo has actually implemented. Ironically, even though the game does run fantastic at 30 FPS, I personally had a bit of a harder time taking some of the shots just because of the sensitivity of moving a reticle to taking some of the shots. Since the original game was in a lower FPS, it was easier to take some of the shots here, but I found myself having a much more difficult experience, at least on the NSO. Then again, it could be because I'm playing it on the Pro Controller and not on the 64, but you know, there are always discrepancies there. And even that mention is pretty minor because for some people it might not be that bad, and I think you'll have a really great time with that. The controls do take a little bit of time just because it's naturally inverted on the N64 version and same on the NSO. When you look up, it's down, down is up, that sort of thing. It would have been nice for Nintendo to include an inverted option specifically on the NSO and not on the menu, which a lot of people mention and I know is present, but it would have been nice if this is something that's native to the NSO version, but that's fine. And even then, I think it won't be too much of a hurdle to really get over, but it's something to worth note for people. Unlike other NSO games where I've had problems with the physical controls that can't be remapped, it does feel rather comfortable to play this on the Pro Controller or Joy-Cons just because you don't really use the Z targeting as much or the Z button. And even though the buttons are switched, it did feel a little bit natural to be able to play this, so I didn't really have a bad experience on that. But I think it's worth to note it's not really as prominent as other NSO games where let's say, you know, for Zelda, where if the buttons are, you know, completely switched, it kind of just throws you off. This is not so much, so you'll be okay with that. This is kind of weird. After you finish every level, your Pokemon shots are actually counted up. It's actually loaded rather quickly on the N64 version, but it really takes its time on the NSO version. And I even noticed to the Wii version to some degree. It's a little bit weird to say, and like I said, it's nitpicky, and I don't know why this happens, but maybe it's one of the faults of emulation, but I always like to note these little discrepancies because you really never know when it comes to something like this. And Pokemon Snap was known for being the infamous game to be able to take your game to a Blockbuster and print them out on a kiosk. Obviously, you can't do that now because one, the kiosk is completely out of print, and two, getting those stickers is a pain in the ass. But there's always a but. Obviously, the Switch has a native screenshot button, so if you did want to take screenshots and you wanted to print them out and put them as stickers, it is now more easier than ever to do so in comparison to, let's say, the Wii version, where you actually had to go into the gallery, then save your shot, then transfer it to an SD, and then transfer it to your computer. So while it isn't as bad, you can only do that once a day, and it is a very cumbersome experience in comparison to this, where you could snapshot, upload on social media, on your Twitter, Facebook, whatever you would like to. It's a lot easier than ever to really do that. So I know it's not really too much to kind of talk about as a feature, but considering this was a game that was predominantly about taking shots of Pokemon and sharing them with other people, I think this is a good way to kind of implement that and share it on social media if you'd like to. And that's my little bit of comparison of Pokemon Snap on the NSO and the N64. And I know for some people there might be a little bit of discrepancies, but I was pleasantly surprised to see that this was actually a solid port of the N64 version, and I really didn't have any problem playing this. It felt pretty natural. But then again, there really isn't that much to this game, so that's why there's not really that much to talk about. And I hate to say it, this is, at least in this point in time, the last of the NSO N64 games, which is kind of a shame because I know some people are very on and off about the N64 expansion pack. Now you can make a official, very solid and objective opinion on a lot of these NSO games, and hopefully that will convince you if you would like to get the service, if you would not, because I absolutely don't think it's worth it financially. But in terms of what you're getting now, it's much better than what came out on launch, but I don't know if that's saying much. But what do you guys think? Do you prefer the N64 version of Pokemon Snap, or does the up-res NSO version call your needs to share it to other people? Let me know in the comments below so we can have a nice discussion. Thank you guys so much for checking out the channel. I absolutely do appreciate it. I wanted to give a huge thanks to these people right here for supporting the channel, as well as the Patreon members. If you also want to see other videos I've done, you can see them right up here, and you can see what works out for you. Thank you guys so much for coming in. I really do appreciate it. I'll check you out soon. Take care.